And is this visible here? Shall I turn it this way?
Yeah, let me get the camera.
And so
I don't know if they can see the names, but they certainly can see the document.
Yes. So this is a photocopy of the original handwritten records of the time. There are 4 sheets. The Army takes up 4 of these sheets, and there are 6 years. And so this is list all of the soldiers, where they were at any given, move it out of one place and move to another. This shows what part of Ireland they moved into, what part of within Ireland they moved within, and then later when they moved out of Ireland. It gives the date they moved out, and it shows where they went. So this is the official record. This is undeniable. And also then, whether they were...
And this is from the National Archives of Ireland?
Of England.
Of
Britain.
England.
Yes, out in Kew, outside London.
So this is English archives,
right,
and English records of what was sent to Ireland.
Thank you for making that clear.
Okay.
Exactly.
So it's not even Irish records; it's
right.
English records.
Yes.
Okay.
And they can never destroy them, because they are the history of Britain.
And the British kept pretty diligent records.
Yes. Now they haven't kept the records of their food removal and their manifests of taking the food aboard the ships, but on the other side, when they landed in England or elsewhere, the landings are all of Irish food, are all well recorded. And so I've used enough. They're abundant, and the amount of food being brought in is a torrent. So I've only shown 4 or 5 listings that take up a couple of 4 or 5 pages, densely printed pages, of how many kegs of this, how many barrels of that, how many head of cattle, how many swine, pigs that were shipped over, what port they arrived in. So that's all completely covered. That again is from the Times, but we know it to be the London Times.
Right.
So that's from the London Times. So then we're left with the big lie having not much place to exist. So once they had to admit that food left Ireland while the people starved, and that was a very late concession on the part of the so-called famine writers, they then developed a brand new lie starting maybe 8 or 10 years ago. And that lie is that it was the rich Irish starving the poor Irish. Again, a brand new lie that had not been necessary before. And so now it's the rich Irish starving the poor Irish. I debunked that in the book also by pointing out that the British government repatriated all its landlords from Ireland between 1900 and 1910. And also this book here, the Great Landowners of Great Britain and Ireland, published in 1878, shows how many acres each landlord had. Now this happens to include England, Scotland, and Ireland. So I went through it, and I got all of the Irish landlords, the so-called Irish landlords, the English landlords in Ireland, and how many acres they had. And I must say, the Anglican Church had tens of thousands of acres of land, even
and
for
that
the
was
church.
the Church of England, which became the Church of Ireland, but
yes.
really was the Church of
They
England.
called it the Church of
that
Ireland.
almost no indigenous Irish were members of, or very few.
Zero. There were many attempts to convert. In fact, one of the great pejorative words throughout Ireland to this day is a super. And that's one who, while starving, took a bowl of soup as a price for renunciation of his Catholic faith.
Right.
And I wish they had all taken the soup at the time. They could have deconverted later. But at that time, evidently people thought that to take an oath was binding forever, and there was just no way out of it. So that happened. I know of a couple of locations where there are maybe 8 or 10 families that took the soup. One outside Bantry in County Cork, not Bantry, doesn't come to me now, just west of Cork City, and another one near Ballinlough, County Roscommon. But they, very, very few.
So let's take a look at this book. It's The Great Landowners of Great Britain and Ireland by John Bateman with an analysis, and that is the book. I don't know if you can do a up close on that or not, but at least showing it. So it's an older book, obviously.
You can see you can see the date on the back of it, 1878.
1878. Now, I'm also looking at some notes that I have that, there were some allegations by some of the writers on quote, the Great Famine, unquote, that the landlords were Irish and not English, and that they were the rich Irish picking on the poor Irish, or it was the Irish mismanaging their crops and food. But you have given a number of names in the book of their non-Irish family names, their English titles, their English clubs, their English addresses, English schools, their British Army rankings, and that between 1900 and 1910, the British government repatriated most of them, or all of them, to England. And that, of course, you had showed me some photos even of some of them. I don't know if we have some of those photos, but some of the photos of where they live now, their descendants, and their names.
Yeah, it might interest our watchers to say that General Pakenham, the British general who died in his attack on New Orleans in 1814 or 15, you know the song, Down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. He died there. He was a landlord with 3 different locations in Ireland. And then General Ross, who burned the White House in 1812, I think it was. And
the War of 1812.
Yeah. He died a couple of days later in his attack on Baltimore, where the American national anthem was created. He led that attack on Baltimore, and he died there too. He was another landlord in Ireland, like Pakenham in New Orleans, General Ross from Baltimore, who died there. He was another landlord in Rostrevor, up in the northeastern part of the country. And you can see this book shows the clubs they belonged to, and the schools they went to, and their titles. And it just happens that the landlords of Ireland, there was a very high percentage, not a majority, but a very high percentage of them were lords in the House of Lords in England. They also had estates in England. The landlord that evicted my great-grandparents and grandaunts and uncles, my grandfather wasn't born yet, he was Henry Flowers. He had some 30,000 acres around Durrow in County Laois. He evicted my great-grandfather and mother from their land in Ballykeely, Durrow, County Laois, and they wandered, and they were told that they could build an emergency shelter for themselves in the shadow of the Lord's gallows, to have them handy in case he should take a dislike to them. And so, with nowhere else to go, they lived there for a few years. My grandfather was born in that emergency shelter in 1839, and shortly after that they moved down the hill into the town and got into a house. And when he turned 18, sad to say, he joined the British Army, because just like the young men in Iraq today, under control of others, there were nothing available except a serf for the landlord, a spy for the British government, a British soldier, a British constable. The choices were very, very few. There was no free enterprise.
And that's one of the reasons you had such emigration from Ireland to the United States and other nations. You find the Irish are everywhere.
Yes.
You know, Australia.
Yes.
New
There's something
Zealand.
called chain migration, and you can have an event like the Holocaust of Ireland. They will get the initial impetus going strongly, and then even though the conditions improve, they draw their nieces and nephews out after them, and it goes on generation after generation. My ancestors here in Chicago worked on the Illinois-Michigan Canal. That's why we're here. And they came at that time. The starvation was on at that time in Ireland. And so they came here then, and there's been chain migration ever since. And I must say, I'm so grateful to those who came here. This is the nation. This is the best nation on earth.
And a lot of Irish came to New York.
Yes.
Boston. Some worked on the railroads.
Many.
Yeah. Many joined the military, were either forced into the military or volunteered in the Civil War and the U.S.-Mexico War.
Yes. I've been to Boston a few times, and when I've been there, I usually say, keep going west, you're only halfway to America. Because when the Irish arrived in Boston, everything had been carved up, everything was already divvied up, and there wasn't much room or concessions given to the newcomers. But they got in at the beginning of Chicago, and particularly those who went to California, they were among the original ones there. They didn't participate too badly in the genocide of the Native Americans, but I must say they were in the 7th Cavalry, and so even survivors of a genocide in Ireland as members of the 7th Cavalry and other regiments here, participated in the genocide against the Native Americans. Not many, but some.
Now, some Irish also moved to England,
Many.
and
They do to this day.
some Irish also fought for the British.
In great numbers. My grandfather, the man who was born in the shadow of the Lord's gallows in Durrow, County Laois, he was a career British soldier. I've learned, I thought it was okay, I've become embarrassed to say it, but he had no options. His sister died between their house in Durrow and the post office where she would go to collect his army pay. He, as a British soldier, supported his siblings, and maybe his parents. I don't know how much longer they lived. But she died somewhere between the post office and her house, seeking his pay. So it was truly, truly dire. Shocking what our ancestors have gone through.
I think there was even Irish Brigade.
There was earlier ones, and there were Irish brigades in the United States.
Right.
Oh yeah, very much so. Yeah.
And then
indeed.
many Irish went to Spanish-speaking lands, either Spain, South America, Mexico, Juan O'Donoghue.
That was in the 1600s.
Right.
That was the destruction of Ireland's aristocracy.
Right.
Yeah. It's all very sad. I wish, in a sense, I never learned. By the way, a little aside here. A year ago, I picked up a book at Plummer's Hall, the only very old book there that I noticed, and it was about the tomb of a 3,000-year-old Irish king. Pretty interesting, about Old Castle, County Meath. In the preface to it, it describes how one of the four masters had moved to Ballycroy back in the bogs of West Mayo over near the ocean, and had two sons to whom he had left his only treasure, his books. When Queen Elizabeth had wiped out about half the population, and
Queen Elizabeth I,
exactly, thank you, indeed.
the daughter of Henry VIII.
Yes, in the end of the 1500s and the early 1600s. A few scholars got together and thought, Ireland and everyone in it is doomed. We will dedicate a few years of our lives to provide the history of the nation that used to be, make a record of what has been here, that it might survive all of us. We won't survive, but the books might. And so they spent 4 years in the convent, the Franciscan convent of Donegal, and they wrote what is today called the Annals of the Four Masters. And it goes back to pre-Christian times, from all the available written sources at the time. And so I was wondering, could it possibly be that there would be a descendant of them? I have a set of Irish national phone books in my house, so I looked through it, West Mayo, and I found a number of, no O'Clearys, but Clearys. And so I thought, you see, in Ireland, just like the Fogartys, many people drop the O's and the Mocks off their name. Mock is son of, O is in the line of. And that was dropped off in order to appear less Irish, when you could be killed for being Irish. When the law did not protect any Irish person, they were being legally non-persons, in the legal, stripped of their legal personhood. So the first one I called Martin.
Now, Mac means son of.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And whether it's MAC or MC, means the same. So I called Martin Joe Cleary, and I said to call him who I was and what I had just read, and would he possibly be a descendant of one of the four masters. He said, well, it has been said a few times, but we don't have any proof. I said, that's a pity. Has any priest or scholar or school teacher historian ever contacted you to find out? He said, no. Well, I said, the man, just for your information, the man who was said to have fled Donegal and gone into Ballycroy, he had two names. One was Cocogri, evidently an old Gaelic name, gone out of use, and the other one was Peregrine. Well, he said, I have a cousin, Peregrine, who left here years ago, moved to England, never came back, died there recently. Well, I said, you've just established that you and all your cousins are descendants of one of the four masters, and you should be very pleased with that.